Good afternoon, fellow ruminators. Welcome back to another session on my Rumination News channel. And I hope that you'd like, share, and subscribe. Very important that you do that so the videos can move along. Try to like the videos and just don't like them and leave them. You need to watch them throughout and give the video a like. And if you can leave a comment so that the algorithm can disperse the videos to as many people on the platform. Unfortunately, they don't send the videos if you don't like them, if you don't interact with them. So please do so that the videos can be sent on the platform. If not, they're going to just allow the videos to die in the algorithmic system. Thank you so much for doing that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, today's topic is going to be Guyana and Trinidad host U.S. military. Should there be a referendum? And that is a question that should be posed to both citizens and the leadership in these two countries. Now, the U.S. Navy has just completed joint military exercises with the Guyana Defence Force, raising major questions about transparency, public consent, and regional security. While Washington and Georgetown describe the PASSEX drills as strengthening cooperation, many citizens are asking a simple question: who approved this? And should the people have a say before foreign military forces operate in national waters? Very important question. And we saw that on last Saturday when I posted my video. I mentioned that Ecuador did have a referendum and the people said no to the presidency of Daniel Noboa. So that is something that is interesting. Why are these Caribbean countries, including Guyana, not having a referendum where people can vote, the citizens can vote whether or not they would like U.S. bases or U.S. military drills on their shores? Very important that they do that. Now, this report on Latin America, well, this is report is on the Rumination News channel, is the U.S. Navy. I'm going to examine the U.S. Navy JDF exercise in Guyana, growing U.S. military presence in the Caribbean, why Guyana and Trinidad are becoming strategic hotspots, whether the public should vote before such decisions are made, and what this means for regional peace, sovereignty, and democracy. If you believe the public should have the final say on foreign military activity in their country, like, comment, and share so this video reaches more people. And please let me know if you think that the people should have a say. And I think the citizens should have a say because they are the ones who are going to have to suffer whatever consequences that befall, whatever arrangement has been done. So it's very important that our prime ministers and presidents know that. Now, we see that in the Guyanese newspaper, there was a story that was carried, well, it was showing a picture strengthening ties. The U.S. Navy and the Guyana Defence Force successfully completed a passing exercise, which they call PASSEX, within Guyana's territorial waters on Saturday between USS Mahan and JDFS Shahud. A post on the U.S. Embassy's Facebook page said that the exercise strengthened coordination between the U.S. Navy and the GDF, Coast Guard. That's the GDF. This is not JDF, but the GDF, because JDF stands for Jamaica Defence Force, but this is the Guyanese Defence Force, the GDF, enhancing interoperability for future tactical and contingency operations with partner nations and reinforcing the U.S. and Guyana's strategic security partnership. Now, we're seeing these military activities just happening, simultaneously, coincidentally, if you will, in the Caribbean. Does it mean that the United States is still determined to invade Venezuela and to have a war with Venezuela? Now, we must understand that this is not just a Trump doctrine or what Trump desires, including Marco Rubio, who is the hawk behind the Venezuelan policy. However, we must understand that the United States is seeking full spectrum dominance. We've been saying that for many days and, since the channel started, that the United States is an empire, is a militarized empire, and it's seeking to control the world. So whether it was Nicolas Maduro or it is another president, once they are not doing the biddings of the United States, it means therefore the United States is going to go after them. So even if Nicolas Maduro decides to leave office tomorrow and his successor, who is going to be much like him or even worse than what the United States desires, it means therefore that they're going to still seek to effectuate regime change. That is what you have to understand. It has nothing to do with Nicolas Maduro. Yes, it has to do with him in the sense that he is opposing US policies, US economic self-interests in the region, in his country, and therefore he is a problem. He's an obstacle for them to accomplish whatever grandiose objectives or lofty ideals that they have for Venezuela. But it's not for the people of Venezuela, it's for themselves. As many articles have been written, they're saying that Trump is only interested in the oil. He's not interested in the region. All he is interested in is the oil. But the United States military-industrial complex is interested in a bigger picture in terms of controlling the world, the entire world. Okay? And that is exactly what the Bible has said, that the second beast of Revelation 13 is going to cause the entire world to wander after the beast. And we can see that right before our eyes, that the United States is going everywhere and saying that she controls that section of the world. And if you don't accede to her wishes, her demands, then you're going to see the brunt of the military. You're going to have to face military consequences. And that is what is happening in Venezuela, happening throughout the world, in Yemen, in Syria, has happened in Afghanistan, in Iraq. And we could talk about a litany of countries: Iran during 1953, Guatemala, I think, in 1954, Chile in 1973, Dominican Republic in 1965, and the list is quite extensive. Jamaica in 1976, under Prime Minister Michael Manley. Okay? And Grenada, of course, in 1983. The list is quite extensive. Okay? Of the brutality of US military operations in these countries because their leaders did not accede to US policies, US foreign policy. Very important that you understand this. Now, in the same newspaper, the Guyanese newspaper, there was an article written, a letter to the editor, in which this writer posed the question: should Guyana hold a referendum to host a US military base on its western border? And this writer seemed to have been saying, yes, they should, and that the United States should be able to defend Guyanese shores. We don't believe that. Most of us on this channel don't believe that, but let us listen to this person's argument, because that's what we're about. We have to look at many sides of the same coin. Okay? Ecuador recently held a referendum on whether to allow an American military base to be established in its country to help combat drug trafficking and violent gangs. Although significant economic development would result, voters have chosen to reject the establishment of an American military base. A surprising development, especially given that Ecuador has such a base in the past. The fact is, they know that the base was not beneficial to them. So Ecuadorians are not stupid, as this writer wants to suggest, because he's saying a surprising development, especially given that Ecuador has had such a base in the past. It's not surprising. It is because the people has common sense, they understand history, and they realize that whenever US occupies their country, that things worsen. Okay? This begs the question, why? The president of Ecuador estimates that 70% of global cocaine flows through the country. Yeah, by whom? And that's the question that we have to ask. By whom is this 70% of cocaine flowing? Who is at the head of it? And the writer here is not critical of that question. Okay? Very superficial thinking demonstrated by this writer. Given the current pending military conflict with Venezuela over Essequibo and the strong agreed to position with our American ally to prevent drug trafficking and the strengthening of the violent gangs from Venezuela, the answer to allowing an American military base should result in an easy yes answer in our government. But superficial thinking. But that's his idea. The economic development that will also result along our western border will help boost and sustain the growth of our economy. And we always wonder economic growth for whom, in whose interest. Right now, we understand that Venezuela, not Venezuela, Guyana, is exporting over 900,000 barrels of oil per day. That is my understanding, based on what I've read from their papers. Yet still, the poverty rate has not declined that much, and people are complaining about the high cost of living in Guyana. So the fact of the matter is that, yes, there is rigorous economic, or robust, I should say, robust economic growth, right? There's robust economic growth in Guyana. I think that they're calling for over 30% economic growth this year, if I read them well. Okay? But yet the citizens are not seeing the economic growth in their daily lives. Okay? Regime change will eventually come to Venezuela, but their position on Essequibo will most likely remain the same. So they're thinking that, the United States is going to protect them from Venezuela. However, with the presence of the American military, our nation will be assured of improved national security and the prevention of any future dispute over our sovereignty, because the United States is a savior, right? This is how this person is thinking. And perhaps he's one of those ones that Mr. Gerald Pereira has suggested, perhaps lives in the United States, is of Indian descent, and wants Guyana to be 51st state, to be the 51st state of the United States, perhaps. He has that thinking, I am sure. In addition, the resulting economic development along the border will increase safe and beneficial trade and commerce with the new Venezuelan government. As for the second consideration, this was a political promise made by the PPP to have a referendum on the oil contract with Exxon after the elections. The elections have been successfully completed, and the United Nations has, for the most part, given its stamp of approval. This should be encouraging and make it easier to have a national referendum held on whether to renegotiate the oil contract with Exxon. Ecuador was able to quickly have such a referendum, and Guyana is no less capable of doing the same. But Ecuador was much more, well, I shouldn't say was much more sagacious, prudent, okay? They understand that having military bases or joint military joint military exercises, U.S. Guyana or U.S. Ecuadorian exercises, will not bring peace to Ecuador, and it will not bring peace to Guyana. It will not bring peace and security to Guyana. And Guyana has to understand that. And that is what the Latin American countries can teach us. They have lots to teach us, because they understand a lot about U.S. imperialism. You go to Brazil and you sit and have a talk with them, and they will educate you about U.S. imperialism. And many of them are not university graduates. And you'd rather them teach you than what you are going to hear in U.S. universities, right? They will teach you a lot because it's lived experience. They have lived the experience of seeing U.S. brutality, military brutality in their respective countries. Okay? So this is what we're saying. Should there be a referendum in Trinidad for the Trinidadians to be able to vote, in Guyana for the Guyanese to be able to vote whether or not they would like military operations, joint U.S. Trinidadian, joint U.S. Guyanese military operations in their respective countries. Okay, but it's interesting now that these two countries, we know that President Irfan Ali of Guyana is also on board with Prime Minister PASSEX of Trinidad, and that they are pro-U.S. policies in the region. They have made their positions very clear, and we know that, and they're candid. I think that Mrs. President PASSEX is a little bit more candid than Irfan Ali. But the two work together, and they seem to, well, they're of Indian descent too, so they seem to share that similar worldview. Okay? So I would like to pose to you, my viewers, what do you think? Do you think there should be a referendum in all of our Caribbean countries, in CARICOM countries, and Latin American countries too? I'm sure I have members from different countries who watch this channel. Should there be a referendum for the people to decide if we are truly living in democracies? Should we be the ones to decide, or should our politicians decide single-handedly what they should do on our shores? Please let me know, and remember to like and to share and to subscribe to the channel so that we can grow and we can diffuse truth around the world. All right, thank you so much for joining today, and I'll see you in another news, not flash, but rumination news position, news story, rumination news story on another day. Tomorrow, definitely, I'll be posting. Remember now that we have another live on Wednesday, and we will be continuing on the discussion about Black unity. As a community, we have to unite, and we'll be joined by Mr. Pereira, who wasn't able to attend yesterday's session because of technical difficulties he was having in his country. And we'll be inviting also Margaret Kimberly, an African American who is the editor of the Black Agenda report. So I hope that you'll be able to join us on Wednesday on another live at 5 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time. And that is the same time as Guyana's time and also Trinidad time. So hope you can make it. Try to make it so that we can have another riveting and scintillating discussion. Will you? Thank you so much.